Well, hello there, humans, hippies, earthlings, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and if you're lucky enough to be doing it too. I'm Bushka on Blitz, and I'm back to talk to you today about a little bright spark, a little point of joy and virility on an otherwise drab and empty landscape. No, I'm just joking. This is basically just talking about really overpowered tanks. This is a T54 Mod 1. I've done a lot of stuff about the equipment loadout and everything from patch 3.8 and how good it is for the game and all that kind of stuff. And it is. I believe it is tremendously good for the game. I believe the game is more dynamic now than it has ever been. I believe that you spend less time spotted. I believe survivability is now a much more important factor. And that's been a holistic thing that's come from the nerf to heat, to the premo nerf, to the new equipment loadouts that accentuate armour and such and go against, just pure DPM. And there's been some tanks that have just unfortunately copped it between the eyeballs. They've really struggled with the dropping of binoculars and all that kind of thing. This ain't one of them. This is tragically, heroically broken. The 54 Mod 1, if it had any deficiencies at all, the new equipment loadouts have either enhanced its strengths to the point where it's a joke, or helped to cover for its deficiencies to the point where they're very, very capable. And if you've got spare parts left and you have this tank and you're wondering about where to spend them, oh mio, oh my, oh Cleveland, Ohio, let me walk you through the ways you are going to become a god of war. The Mod 1, the knock on the Mod 1 was always pretty straightforward. Its mobility was very sluggish, and its gun and DPM wasn't crazy good and all that kind of thing, but it had good armour. And it had a great armour for its tier before when everyone could fire Premo that did full loads of damage to it. Now you'd think that it would suffer because the Premo changes have actually made it tougher for tanks like the Mod 1. And it's pretty straightforward. What I mean by that is that they don't have great penetration numbers. So you used to be able to overcome the lack of penetration by just firing more premium ammunition, and it didn't really hurt you at all in terms of performance. But if you do that now, then obviously you sacrifice damage. This isn't a medium tank. This is now a heavy tank. And it's a heavy tank with just so much going for it. It's just so strong. Let me break it down for you. If you run calibrated shells, you take your penetration on your AP rounds up to 184, which is generally enough. That's generally just grand. You can run supercharge, which gives you 10% to shell velocity and minus 30% to penetration decrease with distance, which again is good for this tank. Like, the more you help your penetration on this tank, the better off you are. And you can run vertical stabilizer as well, so you're helping your gun handling. All good. You can also run enhanced armor, which gives you plus 5% to your hull and turret armor, which was already bloody strong. You can run optics. You can then run engine accelerator. Now, the biggest knocks on the Mod 1 before were its penetration, its gun handling wasn't amazing, and its performance under the pump was pretty crap. But you get 7% faster engine acceleration if you can afford to spend the spare parts on this thing now. And you get better penetration values with calibrated shells. And you can improve your velocity over distance and still maintain the vertical stabilizer that you used to use to get your gun handling up. It's really, really, really good now. That armor buff is massive for it. It's just so tough. It's low to the ground. If you learn how to angle a tank and wiggle a tank, it's a fast, heavy tank. It's what you've got now on your hands, is a fast, heavy tank. You always had that on your hands, but even more so now. Now I'm going to go down here, but I'm going to go down swinging and angling and jiggling and making them really pay attention to get shots in, and just working the corners and trying to stay alive. This is a medium. I mean, I've got no business being this lively and this aggressive in a medium tank and being able to bounce this many shots and actually, successfully tank a lot of damage. But I am. I really am. And it's a testament to just how tough this bloody thing is. That as long as I'm angled up, they're really having to look at their shots as they go around their corner and work to get the angles right. And then they're firing premium. They're firing premo to get in. So that means I'm taking less damage. So my tanking ability has actually been enhanced. So they have to fire premium ammunition to pen, which means they're doing less damage to me. And I already have good armor, and some of them can't even pen me successfully with premium ammo. And then obviously that will all get stopped when you get up tiered, and that's fair enough. But it doesn't get stopped all the time. It doesn't get stopped often enough to really detract from the tank in any meaningful way. Look, I've been doing this favourite tanks, and I still have other tanks I prefer to drive at this tier. Because, I mean, I got my favourites, you know, that's just all there is to it. There's tanks that rub you the right way, and you love them. And as part of my favourite tanks, I've been rediscovering some of the older tanks and going through and rethinking what I know about those tanks. The Comet, for instance, is really struggling for me in Tier 7 because its pen is so crap when it gets up tiered. And you can see all these Tier 8 games you end up in Tier 7 tanks. You're coming up against these big grindy tanks like the 54 Mod 1 and the IS-3 Defender and the Lerva and the T54 and the IS-5 and the IS-6 and the IS-2SH. And these are big, heavy tanks, right? They're big, well-armoured heavy tanks. And if you don't have the penetration values, you won't get them down. And if you have to switch to Pramo, you simply don't have the firepower to eat them alive like you used to in the Comet. When you switched to Pramo, you suffered no penalties whatsoever. And this is one of the reasons why I think the game is so much better off now than it previously was. Because armour means something. Armour is really meaning something. Armour means you're mitigating damage, which is what armour should be doing. You're not always completely directing damage away, but you are mitigating it to the point. Look at this poor Pershing. I mean, I'm angling and wiggling and jiggling, and it's just tough to pen this tank. I mean, it really is. It's a struggle, and he's got to really pay attention to it. And he's got a good angle there, good on him. But how much time has he had to spend on target to actually get through my defences? Whereas I've suffered nothing like that. And you're going to see, this is the last game I'm going to show, and it's got a lovely brawling sequence at the end where I put Swiss Cheesel up on my big shoulders and just carry him home to victory. He's in the T49. So, in essence, what you're finding is that armour now really matters, and penetration really matters. There's not a lot of tanks that just can walk up and pen this thing without premium ammunition at the same tier. You can push on this all the time. I was having a conversation with Swiss in the T49, and we were talking about this tank while we were playing in Platoon. And he said, you know, if I see a T49, if I see a Mod 1 and I'm in the 49, I just go find another target. Because that tank only has heat and HE as its options, and the heat is terrible. And you can see before, I don't mind switching to APCR in this one because its survivability is so much better than most other tanks that you can actually fire APCR and do lower damage outputs and still bounce enough shots that you'll wear them down. You're like, damage over time on this tank. Now, the gun's not great. It's a bit iffy. But if you play it aggressively and get stuck in and move towards the enemy and actually know how to angle and jiggle and wiggle, this thing is just God's own gift to tanking. It is ridiculous. It is such a good tank. It feels completely broken. And if you're clever and you know you go through drive wheels on tanks, if you don't have the penetration, you know, you just... It's the kind of tank that baseline is brilliant, and the more you know about the game and the better you are at playing the game, the better the tank gets. To the point where at times it does feel like a little bit like cheating. It just does. And you can see we're in a fairly solid position here. They've got a lot of heavy tanks. I'm talking about the IS-6 particularly. The IS-6 is still a very good tank. But if you were like me, you used to run the IS-6 gun. I mean, look at that Mod 1. That's with 180 odd millimeters of penetration. I was quick enough to hit him on the lower glacis. I've got an IS-2 SH over there. I'm just wiggling non-stop and not really letting him get any clear shots, and he just goes for an easier target. But he just goes for an easier target because it's too difficult to actually deal with. And you can side scrape in this thing. I mean, for God's sake. So, back to the IS-6. The IS-6, you get a choice of 2 guns. Now, I used to run the first gun because you could just deal with the tanks you couldn't pen, which was like the E75, and that was about it. There's a couple of other minors. That gun does not do very well anymore, because if you have to go to premium ammo to pen with that, you've only got 2 17mm of pen, you are then doing a lot less damage. And look at this thing. We're 2 on 4. I'm just going to brawl my butt off here. I'm going to get the Mod 1. There's the IS-6. I'm just going to keep giving him really crap angles and putting my turret right into the end of his tank. And remember what I talked about with using APCR? I'm using APCR, so it's going to take a little while longer, but that's okay. As long as I can get a couple of bounces off him, I'll be all right. Just angle up again. I mean, look at it. It's such a glorious tank. Such an amazing vehicle. Here comes the 2 SH. We're going to get a bounce off him. There we go. Miss it. Unbelievable. What a tank. What an absolute monster. It's broken. It's all there is to it. It's broken. Like, don't hate on people for driving it. They bought it. Wargaming sold it. You know, that's all there is to it. Like, look how red that E75 is. But, you know, there's another E75 over there doing the business and working hard against him, and so I'm just going to get shots into that E75, and that's all there is to it. I'm Bushka on Blitz, boys and girls. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that one. This is a T54 Mod 1. It is the God tank. It's a lovely little number. Look after yourselves. Stay safe on the battlefield. And if you see Swiss Cheesel out there, remind him that he got carried. Au revoir.